And we're live. All right. Let's get to it. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday, January 14th, 2022. It's our first show of the year, and we're going to dive into the latest in news, rumors, and a healthy dose of speculation because this is the iMore show. Joining me, as always, is iMore contributor Karen Freeman. And
Hello.
And as you might notice, it's just me and Karen. It's a two-person show this week. A little light this week, but I think it'll be fun. Karen, how were your end of year festivities? It's been a while since we've been on the air.
Yeah, great. I got all my whole family together and we made some memories and it was really nice. How about you?
Pretty good. We did a similar um thing. We got everybody together. We got had some Christmas Eve uh lo- basically locked down to a very small group of people gathering. um and yeah, it was a good break. It was a nice, needed, restful period. Yeah.
Very good.
All right, so let's get into it, shall we? We've got some big news. We've been gone for a while, so we've got a lot to cover. um Starting with news from a few weeks ago that I still think is pretty crucial about the iPhone 14. We've got some new stuff from Kuoming Chi. I do always hope I'm pronouncing that right, and I rarely have faith that I am. But yeah, he says that the iPhone 14 is gaining a 48 megapixel camera. Karen, as somebody for whom the camera is a big focus, does this excite you at all?
So to speak. Um, yeah, I mean, at some point, I'm not sure that more megapixels is necessarily a good thing, but I am definitely very curious to see what this could mean for photography, for iPhoneography, if you will.
Yeah.
And the rumor also talks about a periscope, a possible periscope camera. We know that Apple has gotten a patent for periscope cameras. So I'm very interested to see what this will all mean.
Yeah, 48 megapixels. That's okay. So
It's a
I think
lot.
about that's a lot, especially we're still at 12. It should be noted that we're
Yeah,
still at 12 right now
we've been at 12 for
for
years.
years and years. And I kind of
It's not
expect,
like there's been like a steady increase
right? We
at
haven't gone from
all.
like 12 to 16 to 24. Like I kind of
Right,
expected them
right,
to go up to 24 at some point.
right.
Um, I did kind of expect them to bypass 16 and double it. But I mean, it's a very interesting problem, the problem of megapixels in photography, because a pixel is not a designated size. Like a pixel is a component that is made up of red, green, and blue subpixels. Um, and this is true whether these are pixels that you're watching or pixels that you're capturing images with. But the smaller you make the pixels, which you have to make them small. I mean, the sensor's about the size of my pinky nail. Um, the smaller you make the megapixels, the less light they'll capture, and the light captured by each megapixel or each pixel matters. So
Right,
you basically you have to balance resolution with ability to capture light, and
right.
it's one. I mean, I think it's one of the problems that maybe Samsung has seen with its higher resolution cameras on its flagship phones, on I think maybe the Galaxy S20, if I remember correctly. Not this most recent phone, but the previous one that had a 108 megapixel sensor. And the like the photos on that are probably very sharp. From what I remember, they are very sharp. But the light is not going to be the best on a sensor that size.
Yeah, I feel like there was like a megapixel race maybe 10 or 15 years ago where,
Yeah.
when digital first came out, you would get like a 2 megapixel digital camera or something like that. And then there was like this race to get more megapixels and more megapixels, but it kind of stopped, it kind of leveled out.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's the same thing with phones. I feel like 12 to 20 sort of has become the standard, and 48 just seems like a huge jump for Apple to make.
And it's so weird because you think of things like, 4K and the high resolution video that we can get out of our camera these days, but, those 4K only amounts to, I think, like 8 megapixels total.
Okay.
And it I don't think it's 12. Like, we have more than enough for, like, the video, but in terms of photo resolution, th I think the background processing to make images sharper has to do a lot less work when you have more megapixels. So 48 megapixels, that's a lot more than a lot of high-end cameras right now.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Um,
So I don't expect that cell phone cameras are ever going to remotely be like DSLRs. I mean,
mhm,
that's just not possible, just physically to fit it into a package like that. But
mhm.
what I want from my iPhone camera is not for it to be more like a DSLR, but just for it to be more idiot proof. Like I don't want to have to think about I mean, I don't want to have to think about where do I have to stand? How am I going to get enough light in this photo for it to
Mhm.
come out? Like where do I have to stand? What how do I have to have the person turn? Like I want to just be able to just whip out my cell phone, my iPhone, and take a picture and have it be like great, you know?
I was just
So
I'm just sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so I don't know if 48 megapixels is what's going to help us get there, or if that's going to turn it into more of an artist's,
Yeah.
something more for artists. I just not sure
I
how that's going to play out.
I wonder. So, I'm thinking about this. If Apple is moving, like we've said, we've had 12 megapixels for years. I think Apple could get away with, um, going to, just doubling that to 24.
Right.
Um, I think that would be fine. But if they are indeed going to 48, it is, knowing how important light is and how much Apple has talked about that. They talk
Yeah.
about having these pixels are bigger this year, but the sensor size hasn't changed. That kind of stuff. I am a little excited to see, like, they know how important light is to photography. It's the
It's
essential bit.
the most important
It's
thing.
the most important thing in photography. What I would actually like to see, I think, taking your comments about idiot proofing the camera, that would be great. But I think Apple, especially with its machine learning and computer vision stuff, could go a step further. They've got all this great, I think, great post-processing tools that they automatically apply to photos
Right.
that you take in the camera app. I wonder if they could go a step further and start leaning a little more using machine learning for education, like like photographer education. Like you see all of these great, like like really contrasty shots you get with the light and the dark when they post or when they reveal a new iPhone. It's like, look at these
Yeah.
amazing shots that we took. Maybe, you know, have something in the camera app that says, well, okay, look at the light you've got, and if you could frame things this way, or change this setting or things like that.
I don't
Really,
think people
maybe
will want that.
obviously make it a button, but I know it's
Yeah.
something.
Okay. Okay.
it it's it's one of those things, like, keep tips on. Maybe it gives you one and then gives
Right.
you an option to get rid of them. But I know that's
Oh,
something I would definitely appreciate, even if it's just like
yeah.
sort of guide arrows or highlighting a certain feature that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. I mean, I would be interested in that. I might find it irritating after a while and turn it off, but it
Yeah.
would be nice to have the option for that. It's just my experience at having worked in an Apple store is that most people don't want to learn anything. They,
I can't tell you how frustrating that is in life, because that's just true in general.
yeah, I know, and it is frustrating. I can't tell you how many people like I have. I'm a teacher also, as you know, and
Mhm.
I love to teach people things, and I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh, somebody asked me a question, how do I do this? And oh, I'd be happy to teach you that, and they just shove the phone in my face and say, no, you do it. I'm like, "Oh, please let me teach you how so
It's
you can do it yourself."
it's I have a philosophy where I try to be constructive. And I guess I would say as my bit of constructive criticism to, let's say, humanity in general, learn the tools that you use every day that maybe you find essential, whether it's for taking photos or sending an email or even browsing the web. Learn how to use them. You
Yeah, learn
should you
some
should
basics
learn.
at least. Yeah,
At least the very basic things, like the fact that there's a button that's labeled settings and you can press it. You have all of these options that you can turn on and
yeah,
off. Now, I would say go to www.imore.com to learn what options to turn on and off. We're very, very helpful. Very nice,
yes.
lovely people over at imore.com. But
We'd like to think so. We
but
try.
yeah, but it can be that sort of thing can be frustrating. But I think leaning into sort of education a little more on the camera to help people like take those great shots, because it isn't the sensor. It's,
Right,
it's sort of an instinct, and you can train that.
right.
The other bit of this, you brought it up, so the not the iPhone 14, but I guess the iPhone 15 is supposedly going to have some kind of periscope camera. What is that, Karen? What does that mean? I keep hearing this. Like, is
I
this an up periscope thing, and it shoots out of the phone, and you can turn it
I
around?
am
Like,
having a really hard time picturing that. The only thing I can think of that the periscope would be for alternate lenses, like a telephoto or like an extreme telephoto kind of lens, where it would like shoot up and like go pull out to make like one of those big telescopic
okay,
lenses.
all right. And if we read our own work, we can dive a little bit into what these are. So it is kind of what I was picturing. I think the idea is basically that you can offset the sensor and the lens if you need to, and you construct the lens and mirror structure to, the light goes in the lens and then down, so it takes a left or right turn into the sensor. Um,
Okay.
here's what our here's what Oliver Haslam, our news writer, had to say about it. Periscope cameras work by allowing sensors to be mounted differently from traditional ones, creating a larger distance between lens and sensor, which results in improved zoom capability. So
Yeah.
this is also about putting, I think, more, maybe even bigger lens elements between the sensor and the lens.
Right. I mean,
Which, yeah,
to improve the telephoto capabilities. I
yeah,
mean, that's a big weakness of a cell phone camera, an
I
iPhone
mean,
camera is that you can only get so close.
yeah.
But
I mean, even with something like the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, which I think those have three times telescope, or yeah, telephoto now. Yeah,
yeah, the Pro, yeah, it does.
yeah.
Which I
Uh,
use and I love. I mean, that was a big reason for me getting the
mhm.
13 Pro was for that telephoto lens, and I love it.
So here's my other question for you about this. Jumping back to the 48 megapixels, do you think if this is indeed true, do you think this is something that comes to all four phones we're expecting this year, or do you think maybe this is a pro feature?
I would guess it would be a Pro feature.
Yeah, I
It
mean
sounds
that's my
expensive.
it. It does sound expensive, Karen. You're absolutely right. Um, yeah, it's it's very it'll be very cool to finally have a different resolution in the camera for once. Another question about this. If it's, let's say it is pro only, is it just one of the cameras, or is it all three, or is it maybe the standard wide lens and the telephoto? I would suspect that they wouldn't put it in the ultra wide just yet. If
Yeah, I would think there has to be an option not to have that many
Mhm,
megapixels because I'm just thinking about people, texting photos to each other
mhm.
and emailing pictures.
Oh, and
Um,
they'd be so
the
big.
files would be so huge.
And I think that'd be true even if I know, some cameras, like some standalone cameras, like I think it's the Sony, A7 IV or maybe it's no, it's the A7R4. It's their high resolution camera. One of the things you can do, so that is a 61 megapixel sensor, but you can use the same sensor space to take, I think, 26 megapixel images.
Right.
And I don't know that those are a lot smaller. They're like sharper for 26 megapixel images versus other similarly sized photos, but
Right.
it's yeah, I don't know that they're actually that much smaller than the 61 megapixel
Yeah,
files.
because when you when you email
You think?
photos, you have the option to make it smaller, but when
Mhm.
you text photos, you don't have that option,
Yeah.
unless I'm
Plus
missing
I
that somehow.
plus I hate transferring photos at anything other than the original resolution anyway, because it's just like,
I know. I
you
know.
know?
I take pictures at the school where I teach. I take pictures and send them to the director. Like, she often will ask me to take photos and send them to her. So sometimes I'm sending her like 30 photos, so I have to make them smaller, and then she's like, "How come when I click on them, they're all blurry?" And I'm like, you know,
God, give it a minute. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. You know?
yeah.
It can be rough. All right. iPhone 14 cameras. Apple does consistently great work with its cameras. So I am very excited to see what they might do with a much higher resolution sensor
Right.
and see
Right,
what they
and
can get out
Apple
of that.
always does everything very cleanly, so,
Exactly.
if they're gonna do 48 megapixels, it's not gonna be like a sloppy 48, it's gonna be really
No,
nice,
it's
so
it's like, and it's, four times darker. What?
yeah.
Um,
Right,
what do you
no, it
mean?
won't be that, it won't be that, we're not
No,
gonna lose any quality.
I think they will probably have figured out something with like lens elements to get as much light in there as possible.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I, I'm I'm curious. I'm very curious to see what's going on there.
yeah, I feel like the last upgrade from 12 to 13, it was all about video, like, that was the main
yeah,
focus, so to
yeah.
speak, so I feel like the now we're due for, like, a big still camera upgrade.
I mean, you say focus, so to speak, but
Yeah.
literally one of the camera tricks was about like rack
I
focus.
know, I know.
It was that's absolutely right, Karen. That you're not wrong there. We do have a little bit of late breaking news on another product that Apple is expected to release this year, although maybe not anymore. The mixed reality headset um maybe pushed back to next year. Ah, okay. It's fine. I haven't made a lot of plans around it anyway, so huh. Yeah, apparently the Apple headset is having some heating issues according to the fine folks over at Bloomberg. Will we ever
I
see it?
just I mean, I'm not enthusiastic about this particular potential product because it just all sounds a little bit scary to me. Just the idea of immersing yourself in this virtual world where you're blinded to the real world.
Uh-huh.
It just seems like a potential for people to injure themselves and now heating issues. I mean, okay, so not only are you going to trip and fall, but you're going to burn up inside this thing. So
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So
okay.
I have an Oculus Quest 2. I guess it's called the Meta
Yeah.
Quest 2 now.
I don't even
And
trust myself to try those,
and
to
that
try on an
thing
Oculus.
that thing has a fan in it. Which you kind of expect. It does get, and I'll feel the front faceplate every so often. It does get warm. Um, and it
Oh
is worth
my.
noting though, the Apple, I mean, Apple has put a lot of its emphasis on mixed reality, so I'm not sure we'd be totally closed off to the world. I
Right.
expect something more akin to Microsoft's HoloLens than I do an Oculus or even a Valve
Yeah.
Index. But
But
yeah,
still, but
still,
still.
I think the thing I would be most excited for is a completely like using it in a stationary sense. If you could like kind of close everything off and it would be like just a home theater on your face, you know?
Right. But
Um,
I don't want a home theater on my face.
I love the concept
I
of a home
just
theater on my face.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Who
I don't
yeah.
want
No,
it.
I totally get you. The product I think I've said this before, the AR product I'm most excited for, at least in potential, is the glasses. That
Yeah.
is that really is more my speed. But I'd want them to have a lot of battery life. So I hope Apple's working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
MX4
know.
4211 in the comments. Yeah, he does, but I also think that a headset really would kind of point towards the addition of some, at least some VR component, not just
Right.
AR.
Right. And
Uh,
Tim is not one to talk about things before it's actually made,
well,
you know.
yeah, and
It,
it- and it's not like the iPhone or the iPad can currently provide a virtual reality experience outside of, and I don't even know if people do this anymore. Those like Google Cardboard headsets, where you have like the cheap little headset and you shove your phone into it, and oh look, it's VR. Um,
ugh.
that was, man, that was a thing. I
Was
think
it?
no, I mean I mean it wasn't like a. That's the thing. It wasn't like really a thing, but it was. I played around with it a few times. It was
Yeah.
rough and janky.
Yeah.
Very
It,
much
it
a
seems
non-interactive experience.
it seems kind of MacGyvered together.
Very MacGyver together. That is a perfect way to put that. But yeah. So heating issues maybe pushed to 2023. Bit disappointing, but at the same time, I still wouldn't be surprised if we hear a little bit about it this year. If Apple wants to give developers as much lead time as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think developers would need a lot of lead time.
I
Because it's not like, there's gonna be a new iPad and it's gonna have slightly different dimensions, so you need to rejigger all of your apps to fit these new dimensions.
yeah,
I mean,
or
this is gonna be a whole new, reality.
exactly.
And
I
you
think
can't have this you can't put out this headset with no apps that work with it, developers all of the developers need a lot of time to.
yeah, Karen, that's exactly right because this isn't even, I mean, forget a device with new dimensions. This isn't even we're introducing the iPad situation from, you know, god, 12 years ago now.
Right,
Um where it's we have an entirely new class of device and you runs your apps, but you want to optimize them for the tablet.
right.
It's not even that. You're not going to optimize what, like, Todoist for the headset in the same,
Yeah.
like, it's not just going to be a window. You're going to like be able to hold your tasks in your hand and then
Yeah,
throw
I
them
mean,
anywhere.
this is gonna be developing apps from the ground up. I mean, we're talking developers are going to have to hire whole new teams of software engineers in order to make apps. This It's not gonna be something they can just, you know, add onto their regular employees to-do list, you know? It's gonna be huge.
Yeah, it's not going to be simple. So I think, I mean, developers only had what, 6 months of lead time between when they announced the Apple Watch and when the Apple Watch debuted. This is a just orders of magnitude more complicated
Right.
in
Right.
software. So I don't think a year of lead time is unreasonable.
Right. Right, for sure.
Yeah,
And
especially.
I mean,
uh, Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you think about it, even with 6 months, there weren't a ton of great Apple Watch apps at the
Nope.
beginning, and it's
And
been a very slow progression, and they have gotten better, but,
mhm.
it
and
wasn't an easy thing to do.
and it's not like it was helped by the pretty low spec hardware of the first Apple Watch.
Right.
It was a little rough, those early days of Apple Watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. Apparently this headset has its own, as you might expect, its own new OS, which according to Mark Gurman is called internally ROS. So I do wonder what I assume the R is for reality.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious to see what that's called and how we'll get updates on it. I also think that we'll probably download them ourselves, but that's my kind of speculation. The little things. What's the settings app going to look like? That's what I care about. Um, will we be immersed in a world of toggles and controls and settings? Um, who knows? I do have to imagine that this thing is largely going to be voice based too, which also adds a different dimension to development, I think.
Right. That would make sense. Because you
Because
don't
I
want to be like fiddling with a thing on your face with your
Yeah,
hands that much.
and we haven't heard a lot about potential controllers for it either. You know, we haven't
Right.
seen. I mean, we've seen that um that sketch of what it from the information of what it could look like, which I still not sure I buy that. Um,
Yeah, I don't like that picture.
I think the renders that were kind of made from it, like very much down the line, look better, but still, I get a top strap for weight distribution.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't like things on my head. I didn't my glasses get in the way. I don't
I'm not
see
a
how
hat
this is
guy.
gonna work.
I'm not a hat guy.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like, I
uh,
can't wear a headband or even, like, barrettes in my hair or even a ponytail. Like, it bothers me.
it's gonna be free flowing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I am very curious to see what Apple's take on all of this is and how much they're going to charge for it. But yeah, I am much more excited about the prospect of glasses, I think.
Yeah.
But that might just be me.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the other thing is price. Like, I don't see how this thing can be less than thousands of dollars.
yeah, I mean, you hear about it. So what are we hearing? Like, so 4K effectively in the display, which is fairly high resolution for a headset, and then 3 lenses. Um, I guess for like continuity of vision across, like, when you move your eyes. Um, I would bet Apple would call them premium materials. If no controller, then maybe hand tracking. That's pretty advanced. I say the baseline price is probably 1,000.
I'm guessing at least double that. Uh,
Ooh,
but
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it really is going to depend on who it's for. Like if it is a sort of entertainment gaming device, 2000's not going to cut it. I like
No.
that they're, to even get, most Apple fans, 1,000 is the sort of the floor that's where you have to hit if you want to capture a larger percentage of Apple fans. Like 2,000,
Yeah.
that's not going to fly.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that should be the
Yeah.
price. I'm just saying, like, I don't see how it could be less than that, but we'll
Especially
see. We'll
since
see.
especially since this is Apple we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
really. Um, all right, before we move on, Karen, why don't you tell us about this week's sponsor?
Yes. Have you ever hit a technical snafu shopping online? Has filling out payment field given you a headache? Has a mobile banking app even been down when you wanted to use it? Capital One believes everyone deserves better banking. This means easier access to their money and more security. That's why Capital One is investing in machine learning. Machine learning allows Capital One to do things like fight fraud with random forests. Models quickly detect suspicious activity and make it faster to alert federal investigators. Identify how mobile app outages happen with causal models. Keeping our mobile app up and running doesn't happen by accident. Anomaly detection and incident response help determine why app outages happen so engineers can quickly remedy them. Speed up online shopping with machine learning at the edge. Makes shopping with virtual card numbers smoother and more secure. This technology is based on logistic regression models and running inference in the browser. It identifies payment fields, which helps make using virtual card numbers easier and faster. The potential of machine learning is so big. See how Capital One is using machine learning to create the future of banking. Search machine learning at Capital One. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Karen, I have to say, it does feel more and more like the more times you say that, the more times it feels like we've made it. All right. I want to move on to a product that I am eagerly anticipating this year, and it's one of Apple's physically smaller product, but it's one that's close to my heart, or really my ears, and that's AirPods Pro 2. Because just before New Year's, we had some interesting talk from Apple's, I want to say, VP of Acoustics. Is it VP? Yes, VP of Acoustics, who sat down with our friends over at What Hi-Fi to talk about the AirPods 3. The AirPods 3 came out towards the end of last year. I actually now have a pair of those. I think they're excellent. They sound different from AirPods Pro and the AirPods 2 before that. AirPods 3,
Really?
yeah, I think that
How
I do
so?
think they're how to put this? They're the bass is more expansive without being overpowering. It just feels there's
Okay.
more presence overall in the audio. And that might be an effect of the like the sort of secondary like grills on the AirPods, the stuff that not just directly into your ear but also that kind of bounces around your ear. That
Okay.
stuff is different. Like there's some different placement there. And I also think, they've probably updated their tuning a bit. And yeah, it's different in a way that's better. I would not be surprised if AirPods Pro 2 sound similar when they arrive supposedly in Q4 of this year.
So
Um
do you like the AirPods 3 better than the AirPods Pro?
I I
You
like
think
the
they sound
sound.
better?
I like the sound better in the AirPods 3,
Okay, interesting.
but what I found is that overall I still prefer AirPods Pro because of fit, because I do
The
like the ear tips, and
Okay,
I do think they provide a more secure fit for me.
okay.
Which is what
And the noise
makes
canceling, of course, is a big.
the noise canceling's pretty clutch. It's pretty good. Um, I do like it. But this interview did make me excited for a couple of things for the potential of AirPods Pro 2. The biggest thing for me is the uh, the wireless question. Apple, about 6 or so months ago, Apple launched lossless audio and Dolby Atmos onto Apple Music, and the big brouhaha of that was AirPods don't do lossless because they don't.
Right,
Because
right.
they're Bluetooth headphones. And don't anybody come at me with like aptX, high res, or any of that, because that is not as good as you think it is. It says it says lossless, it says high res, but it's not really. And yeah, all of that came down to the limitations of Bluetooth, because one of the reasons that I'm not a big believer in things like aptX high res in Bluetooth is because the higher your frequency of the Bluetooth signal, the more inherently or the less stable it is. It's
Okay,
inherently unstable the higher it goes. It's one of the reasons actually why what is it? The not the 5G, the mmWave 5G. That's why you need to be much closer to the towers, because it's so high frequency. So
right.
it has a high data rate, but it has a lower stability rate than sub 6. It's the same
Kind
basic
of a
idea.
sucky trade-off, if you ask me.
It's not a great trade-off. No, because
I want everything. I want it all. I want
I wa-
stability and high frequency.
as the great band Queen said, I want it all and I want it now. I
Yeah.
want both. Uh, but yeah, one of the
Oh,
things that Gary Jeeves, I don't know how to pronounce that surname, but one of the things he said, and he didn't say, he didn't elaborate further, but he did talk about this limitation of Bluetooth and how Apple wants more bandwidth. And I think, see, MX4211 again in the comments. Um, I don't know that it's a new version of AirPlay, but we are going to talk about what that might be. So, getting more bandwidth is not going to come out of Bluetooth. Certainly not right now. But there is another technology that Apple has more recently been uh, working with that might serve the purpose that we want of wireless lossless audio, and that is ultra wideband. So think the U1 chip, that kind of thing. that
Yeah.
signal can be purposed. Well, maybe not the ultra, or not maybe not the U1's chip, U1 chip specifically, but you can use ultra wideband for audio, and you can use it for high res audio. Well, maybe not lossless audio. I keep using all of these terms that are mixed and matched, but you can use it for lossless audio, certainly CD quality. And the other exciting thing about it is the power efficiency from that. It's apparently more power efficient than even Bluetooth LE. Yeah, I think ultra wideband will also lead to faster connections if it is indeed what they choose to go with. Yeah, I think that's very interesting, that thought. It's something I heard recently. I heard people speculating on recently, but it is not a new thought, especially once Apple came out with lossless audio that AirPods couldn't play. It's definitely
Yeah.
something yeah. And what's
I
great
think
about it
Apple
is,
had
oh,
Oh,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say Apple needs to do something like this, and if they're gonna upgrade, I mean, if they're gonna have a new AirPods Pro, it can't just be the AirPods Pro again. I mean, they have to
Mhm.
make a big leap like this.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I feel like not even just in design, like for the mainline AirPods, the AirPods 3 were a decent leap forward in design. Or at least it's certainly a jump in design. It's not
yeah,
whether it's forward or backward is, I guess, personal preference. I think it's
right.
forward, but you're absolutely right. It can't just be design. I mean, we've heard a lot about how it's not going to have a stem. The Pro 2
Yeah, no,
aren't going to have a
I
stem. That it's
not
not just
design, I
that.
mean, in function, I think it has to have a big leap.
I think I think the big things I'd like to, so better audio, um, new functionality, and this is huge, like maybe even a leap in battery life, which is something that maybe ultra wideband could help with.
Yeah,
Um, while we're still stuck with lithium ion batteries, which that there's a technological leap I want to see, is let's move away from lithium to something better, more robust. Um, with higher charge capacity. But I think you're right. I think um oh, other exciting thing about ultra wideband, latency. And
mm,
I don't think latency is a problem with Bluetooth when you're talking about music or even video. Like if you're using it for spatial audio on, watching a movie on an iPad, but
yeah,
where it could theoretically be a problem is in AR and VR.
right,
So this mixed reality headset comes out, you Apple was going to want to have a wireless, not a wired headset, a wireless headset that
right.
works really well with it. So ultra wideband could do that. Um, it's very exciting, and it's very exciting to think about this stuff. But one of the other great aspects of ultra wideband is it's also not proprietary. Like Bluetooth isn't proprietary at Apple, ultra wideband
Right.
isn't. Now, not as many companies are working with it right now, but they could, and it is a standard. So Apple might have its own special implementation with its chips, like it does with Bluetooth right now with the H1.
Yeah.
But the possibilities are very exciting, and the more I think about it, the more I think it might be the direction Apple goes. Maybe not AirPods Pro 2, maybe not this year, though I think they definitely could.
I hope
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Seems
Now,
like that's going on the right track.
yeah. Now you're not an AirPods person, right, Karen? You have so many
No.
earbuds and headphones from so many other manufacturers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I reviewed so many. I just I have not gotten around to buying AirPods. Plus, I don't really I wouldn't really use them that much. I live with just one other person, and he's pretty quiet. So I mean, I'm not in a noisy place where I need to have like focused sounds coming in my ears at all
Yeah.
times. I mean, if I want
Um,
to play music, I'll just play music. It's not going to bother anybody.
I gotta say, I do wonder about price on AirPods Pro too, because we saw it was last week was CES 2022. I had been planning to be there, and then we decided not to go because state of the world. Um,
Because 2022
because 2022
looking a
is
lot like 2021,
which was a lot like
like
2022.
2020.
Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, but one of the things that we saw out of that is we saw a couple of new sets of earbuds that have Find My functionality and have
yeah,
things like noise canceling for a lot less than AirPods offer them. Now,
yeah.
or AirPods Pro offers. Now, obviously um you don't have the same level of
Device switching.
device switching or quick connection that you
Yeah,
have with AirPods because they don't because Apple doesn't license out the H1 to anybody. That
yeah,
is something they keep for themselves in Beats. But at the
yeah,
same time, like they might not be quite as good as AirPods, but they're probably like good enough for most people, and they have
yeah,
those features for under $200. So I don't expect Apple to bring the newest version of AirPods Pro under $200, but I think
yeah.
there's some pressure on that.
I think technology has gotten to the point where, there are plenty of under $100 completely wireless earbuds that are perfectly good for, listening to music and taking phone calls and watching movies and everything. I mean, you won't get the device switching, you won't get the Find My functionality, except now apparently more companies are doing that. But if you don't if you don't need those features, you can get even active noise canceling for
Yeah.
very, very low prices now.
I was actually happy to see, just to talk about CES a little bit. There were some interesting devices that came out of that for in terms of like Apple's more recent technological pushes like third party Find My products. And
Yeah. I
I
I feel
think
like there was go ahead.
no, I think like Chipola, which was one of the first companies to jump on the third party Find My functionality, they have a new tracker that looks like it's a credit card. Essentially, it's the size of a credit card.
Yeah.
Um, then there was I think another name I'll never pronounce right on the first try. Schlag. Um, the lock company the lock
Yeah.
company, they've introduced the first lock that supports Apple's digital
HomeKit.
house keys in the wallet. So we're finally getting
Yeah.
somewhere there. Yeah, it was a very interesting. I think maybe the one big standout for me was the Bluetooth speaker that connects to the MagSafe spot on an iPhone.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a weird one, but,
It is a weird one, but it's it's small and it just clips on right there. So
yeah, it's
good
convenient.
for them. Good for
I
them.
feel like there were a lot more sort of Apple related products at CES, or Apple compatible
Hmm.
products, than there have been in past years. Maybe that's
Yeah.
just my
Yeah.
my
It
observance,
was
but
yeah, it was surprisingly packed. I think full of
lots
stuff.
of
We have
fun stuff for Apple users.
yeah. I like you know w- we've got a lot of HomeKit stuff out of there.
Yeah,
I think one of the big uh pushes for home automation companies this year was Thread, which is a
yeah,
wireless protocol that is really useful for Internet of Things products. And it's I think one of the underpinnings of Matter, which is that protocol that Apple and Google and Amazon and a bunch of other home automation companies signed on to, that was supposed to launch last year, that will then launch later this year. Um, let
right.
and essentially allow HomeKit stuff to work with stuff that isn't built for HomeKit. So Alexa and Siri can control the same devices across the same home without you having to switch between any of them. Although it's funny, we are now, I think, at a spot where that's less and less necessary. Just more devices are launching with support for all of that. Although maybe this would make that easier. Maybe Matter will make that easier.
Yeah.
So many cameras this year. Everybody wants HomeKit security cameras. Do
And I'm
you
not sure
have
if that's because people want to be more secure, or because they want content for their TikTok channels. I don't know, because I see a lot of
yeah.
home security camera content on the
Do
various
you
social media platforms.
have you gone in at all into home automation stuff, Karen?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
actually. I have a few. items. I'm actually testing it's not a doorbell, but it's an outdoor security camera that's
Okay.
posted outside my front door and
Yeah.
out my back door. So I'm testing that for review right now. And I have to say, I like being able to see. Like we were, we took our family out to Phoenix last week to get some sun, and it was nice to be able to see. Well, first of all, it was nice to be able to see the snow outside my door that I was
Uh-huh.
missing. But it was nice to be able to see when we got packages because we had a neighbor grabbing our packages for us. So it was nice to be able to see when we got them and just kind of keep an eye on things. It's pretty convenient.
Yeah. I've mostly gone in on lights. Like the light over here
Yeah.
that shines right on my face, that's connected to a smart switch.
Yeah.
I have the light I use in my bedroom is a HomeKit light. I've even got I now have a Siri shortcut where I can say, "Let's get some sleep," and it turns off that
Oh.
light and sets my devices to sleep mode.
Oh,
The
nice.
the sleep focus. So my
Yeah.
watch turns off, my watch turns to that and the screen turns off. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
one phrase, everything's off, I go to sleep. It's great.
That's nice. I have some lights too, so it's
Mhm.
also nice when you're out of town to be able to turn lights on and off. You can obviously you can set them to go on and off at certain times, but you can also just randomly say, "Okay, I'm gonna turn on a light now. Okay, I'm gonna turn off
Which
a light now."
that's
Just
I think
anytime
the
you feel
ability
like
to
it.
do it randomly is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, at times of the day that would make sense to have lights on and
Right.
not 3 in the morning.
Right. Right.
All right. Moving right along. There's just a lot. Let's talk a little bit about the iPhone SE. Because that is, I would imagine, the device that's coming up first.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the iPhone SE, we've got a new report out of Dylan, the leaker, the Twitter leaker, Dylan, who's popped up a few times,
Yeah.
especially last year with some interesting rumors. The iPhone SE for 2022 is not going to be, you know, it's not going to be a barn burner of a phone. They never are, but
It's not supposed to be.
it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
But anyone who's expecting a redesign, I guess that's kind of fair, given that we've only had 2 models of iPhone SE and they had it's 2 different designs. But at the same
I
time, yeah,
I would say nobody is expecting or wanting a redesign of the
certainly
iPhone
not
SE.
wanting a redesign.
No,
I
I
don't
can
even
tell you
want it
specifically
redesigned.
the people that use the iPhone SE in my life don't ever want a design change. They want
Yeah.
that phone to look and feel exactly the same forever. And if they have to buy a new one, they want it to look and feel the same.
So and
So
that's
adding 5G support is a great upgrade, and that is all that the SE needs.
and I would expect that there's a new chip in it too, the A15.
Sure.
I would
Yes,
expect the
yes.
A15 to be in that.
A15 chip. I mean, maybe they could improve the camera a little bit,
Yeah.
just a little bit nicer pictures maybe, but I mean, if there's gonna be an uproar when they get rid of that home button, let me tell you.
You think that's a question of when and not if? Like
I
maybe
do.
yeah, they will eventually.
I do, but I think it's gonna be a sad day for many people
Yeah.
when that happens.
It does look. It does kind of go to what I was saying at the beginning, like it learn. Um I don't think
Mhm,
let me put it this way. M- I think the iPhone SE is popular with maybe a lot of older users.
mhm.
Um I don't think age is an excuse to stop learning. So
I agree with you. I think it keeps you young if you can keep learning and keep growing and keep changing.
even if it's
But
learning to swipe up while you look at your phone rather than put your thumb on a fingerprint sensor.
right.
Um, but who knows? But maybe by the time they're ready to change the design, they'll have an in power button fingerprint sensor for the iPhone. Maybe, and they'll do that
Yeah.
because it's cheaper than putting Face ID in a phone at that price.
Right. That makes
Um,
sense.
but yeah, I think I mean, I think this sounds good, right? You know, a spec and just an internal spec bump and 5G and the iPhone SE. That great. It's great. I love it.
Right.
And then I think it's next year we're supposedly getting a bigger one, which would also be good. You know,
Sure.
you know, a smaller and bigger iPhone SE, like options. It does sound like Apple has decided, at least in part, that the size of the phone should not be restricted to the most expensive iPhone you can get, right? Like it
Right.
is right now. I am curious to see the larger mainline iPhone this year, the iPhone 14. I guess we'll call it iPhone 14 Max. I hope they call it the Max. Karen, I hope they don't call it the Plus. I just Max is for the big phones and the big Mac chips.
Yeah, I
Um,
think Apple's gonna have to come up with some new synonyms to describe large things rather than recycling old words because it gets confusing. Like
yeah,
mega, how about mega?
or ultra.
There you go.
Let's get ultra or get start. Well, I mean, before we started getting all these COVID variants, I would have suggested Greek letters like the iPhone Omega, and it's the
No,
you know
the Greek alphabet has been completely ruined for
it's
everything
it
forever.
is unfortunately for you like Karen, but for alphabets.
Yeah,
Uh, it's that.
exactly.
It's very unfortunate. But yeah, I'm happy for people who eagerly await a new iPhone SE. I think having a more you know, not a year necessarily a yearly cadence, but a more rapid one than every 4 years on the iPhone SE is certainly would certainly be welcome for a lot of people because I'm sure there are people who like the SE, but who maybe would want a you know, maybe they would spend a little more on a new phone, at that price point a little more often. But even if you hang on to an SE forever, like every 2 years, that's a fairly predictable cadence to know that this is when I'm gonna get it. You know, this is when or when I need to get a new phone, they will have a better one available.
Right. No, I think every 2 years is a reasonable cadence, but I don't think that SE users will buy a new phone every 2 years.
No, no, but there will be
I think
something essentially new for people who do want who
right,
are looking for that price point on a phone, every 2 years, something current, fairly up to
right,
date,
right. And
you know?
frankly, I mean, if something happened to my phone, like, a couple of months before a new phone was due to be released, like, I'd be
Mhm,
hard pressed to buy another iPhone 13 Pro.
and
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So I might have to buy, to buy, like, a little SE to hold me over or something like that.
yeah,
I'd like to have that option
yeah,
anyway.
that's good. I mean, if you're someone and also, like, if you're someone who, I don't know, feels the need to have a backup device just in your home, SE is a good
Right,
option. Like, it's a good
right,
phone. It's got an
right.
A13. It's got a decent
Yeah,
camera. You can get
right.
it in red. I mean, I suppose you can get the
Yeah.
iPhone 13 in red, but you can't get the iPhone 13 Pro in red. Um,
True.
so yeah, it's yeah, I I I I really like that Apple does that. That I think
Yeah.
the
I
knock
I
against
like
the
that.
yeah, I
I
think
was
the
just
knock
gonna say
against
I
the
like
iPhone
having
for years.
options.
Yeah, I think the knock against the iPhone for years, and I still, to my befuddlement, continually, I see this online, especially among the youths. Um, but it's the notion that iPhones are really expensive and Android phones are really cheap. Like the Android phones that are cheaper than the cheapest new iPhone you can get are really bad. Like they're bad phones. Like
Yeah,
399. There are a lot of Android phones available for 399 that aren't as good as the iPhone SE,
right.
you know, because it uses the most like it's using not currently the most recent processor, but soon it'll be using an A15 if these rumors pan out.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's yeah, it's very nice. It's very nice that they're that they seem to be keeping that updated better than they used to because it was 4 years between the first SE and the second. And I
Yeah,
just don't
that's
want
a
to
bit
see that
long.
again. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Last one, I think. And this is we're going back to iPhone 14 rumors here. We have so what the iPhone 14 Pro's front-facing camera is going to be seems to be shifting on a week by week, maybe even day by day basis. For the longest time, we heard it was going to be a hole punch, and now it seems like it might be a hole punch and a pill, or just a pill. It's like the whole thing is a pill, Karen. I what
Yeah.
what is
I I don't love the pill plus hole punch look. I find it distracting. Like, at that point, you
pick
might as
one,
well just stick with the notch. What
right?
how is a
Like
pill plus a hole punch better than a
I
notch? What are
Karen,
you gaining?
I was thinking the exact same thing yesterday. And it's like, okay, so we've gone from hole punch and then it expanded a little to be a hole punch and a pill. No, expanded a little to be a pill and then expanded to be a hole punch and a pill. What is the just oh, also we've got this handy bit that comes down from the bezels and oh, look, it's a notch. It's a they just kept doing a notch. What's,
Yeah. I
maybe
mean,
they
if we're
could move the
doing
notch to one
just
side.
yeah.
That
But
would be
what
bad,
but
but there are phones that do that and I don't understand why.
yeah. No, I'd rather just keep the notch as is, maybe make it a little bit narrower. Um,
Just keep shrinking
but
it.
I don't like the pill and the hole punch together. If it's a pill or a hole punch, that's an
That's
improvement
fine.
because then we get more space at the top. Maybe we could put that battery percentage back or have that option.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not gaining anything
What
by
yeah,
having a pill and a hole punch.
what does that really do ultimately, and for whom? Um,
No, it's
I
silly.
I'm I look at this and I kind of hope that the hole punch bit is some kind of it's a bit of room for a sensor that needs a little more. I mean that the hole punch bit won't be visible on the display. I don't know why it would be built like this if that were the case, but I'm grasping at straws here for anything that
Yeah.
might indicate that it isn't this bad.
Yeah. I actually the pill shape I don't mind. I feel like the pill is almost nicer looking
I actually kind
than
of like
just
it,
a hole punch. Yeah.
comparatively.
It looks more intentional. I feel like a hole punch looks like an accident or a mistake, whereas like the pill looks more like an intentional design.
We did this. It's another sort of silhouette redefinition. The way the
Right.
notch was. But
Right.
now instead of having a big notch on the Apple website, it's a silhouette of a little tiny hole punch. But only
Yeah.
for the pros. Because I
Right.
think the 14 is still supposed to have the notch that we know and love. Um
Quote unquote.
quote unquote know and love. Well, we do know it, but do we love it? Probably not. Yeah, this
We tolerate
man,
it.
we
That we know
certainly
and
accept
tolerate.
that it's there. We are not in denial anymore about the notch.
Yeah.
Like if I can accept the notch on my MacBook Pro, I can continue to accept the notch on my iPhone 14. But
Yeah.
if it's gonna do this, I'll tell you, the pill and hole punch thing, you talk about the hole punch seeming a little bit like an accident. The pill and hole punch really seems like there's some sort of
Yeah.
accident happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, there I actually thinking about it, there's no context in which a hole punch feels like it's not an accident. Um,
Yeah. I it just feels like a very un-Apple design choice
yeah.
to me.
I would I think I'd like it a little better if they treated it a bit more like Google treats the hole punch on the Pixel. Because
Yeah.
one of the things Google does with that is they make wallpapers around the fact that there is a hole punch on the Pixel. And so when you
Yeah.
put them up, the wallpaper like subsumes the camera
Yeah.
hole.
That's really smart, and I'm surprised that Apple doesn't do a better job with it, do more wallpapers that sort of hide the notch, but certainly there are plenty of third-party,
Yeah.
wallpapers that you can download that'll hide
I
the notch pretty nicely.
like one of the more clever little apps to come out. I think it was towards the end of the year. It was a Mac app for I can't even it's like Notcherizer or something like that. It's got a name like
Yeah,
that, but
yeah.
it was and it's an app for Mac aimed at the new MacBook Pros that highlighted the fact that there's a notch there. You could string up Christmas lights under the notch.
Oh.
If you're familiar with Battlestar Galactica, the Cylon red eye, you could get that going around the notch. It was
Oh,
fun.
that's funny.
It was fun and it was
It's
funny.
cheeky.
It is. It's cheeky and
Yeah.
it's white cheeky And
Yeah.
no apologies to our colleague Stephen Warwick. No apologies at all. And yeah, so just kind of embrace that it's there. One of the things I want Apple to do in 2022, and I know they will, but I want them to, is Apple, have more fun with your products. Like, I know you're super serious company for every kind of user, but just have more fun, guys. It's okay to have fun with your stuff. You can still make it good and make it fun.
Yeah. Yeah, like some fun wallpapers. It would be so
Wallpapers. I'm
easy.
not asking for the world here.
It would be so easy for Apple to just, like, include another dozen or so wallpapers and just throw some in that are just fun and cheeky,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Play with the notch a little bit. Why not?
Have a little fun with it. And if we're getting a pill, or for God's sake, a pill and a hole punch, have some fun with that. Make the pill and hole punch kind of like some kind of eye thing. It's an eye wallpaper. You
Yeah,
make the
something.
iPhone.
Something to make it more
For
fun.
goodness sake, guys. All
Agreed.
right. We've come down to the end of our hour. Karen, this was a fun one-on-one show to do. Very different from what we've done. But
Yeah.
I had a good time today. It was a good first show back.
Yeah, me too. I sure missed it.
Yeah, it's good to be in 2022. I think
Yes.
possibly theoretically it's good to be in 2022 and leave 2021 behind. It's good to see everyone who stopped by to comment and stopped by to watch. Thanks to everyone who did that. It's always great to see you folks with the fun comments. Big thanks to everyone who's going to listen later or watch later in their podcatcher of choice or on YouTube. Huge shout out to Jim Metzendorf, our editor extraordinaire, who always makes us sound so lovely. And until next time, this has been the iMore Show. Bye, everybody.
Bye.